Whoopi Goldberg thought she had Jonathan Roumie figured out. Another actor riding the wave of Christian entertainment, ready to play nice for mainstream television. But what she discovered in a leaked recording 3 days later would expose the most shocking religious confrontation in daytime TV history. A secret demand, a hidden agenda, and a response so powerful it would shut down one of television's most outspoken hosts and spark a cultural earthquake that Hollywood is still trying to silence. What you're about to hear wasn't supposed to get out. The audio was buried, the witnesses sworn to secrecy, and the network fought desperately to keep this story from reaching the public. But the truth has a way of surfacing, especially when it involves the man who portrays Jesus on the world's most watched Christian series, facing off against one of television's most notorious faith critics. Oh, and before we dive into what really happened behind those studio doors, tell us in the comments what moment from The Chosen touched your heart the most. Because after today, you'll understand why they tried so hard to silence the man who brought those moments to life. It was supposed to be a routine Tuesday morning at The View. Hot topics, celebrity gossip, the usual controlled chaos that Whoopi Goldberg had mastered over decades in that host chair. The green room buzzed with the familiar energy of producers shuffling notes, makeup artists touching up faces, and co-hosts rehearsing their talking points. Today's guest was Jonathan Roumie, the breakout star whose portrayal of Jesus in The Chosen had captivated over 400 million viewers worldwide and turned him into an unlikely celebrity. But this wasn't going to be the friendly promotional interview his publicist had arranged. Unknown to Jonathan's team, Whoopi had spent the previous evening in what insiders would later describe as an emergency strategy session with her producers. The topic wasn't his acting career or the show's success. It was what they called the Jonathan Roumie problem. His growing influence, his uncompromising faith, his refusal to separate the character of Jesus from his own Christian beliefs. You see, Jonathan wasn't just playing Jesus. He was living it, breathing it, posting about it on social media with a conviction that made Hollywood executives nervous. His Instagram posts about prayer, his interviews where he credited God for his success, his visible cross necklace that never came off, not even for secular red carpet events. He had become what they feared most, an actor who wouldn't act when it came to his faith. As Jonathan walked through the studio hallways that morning, wearing his characteristic dark jeans, simple shirt, and the silver cross that had become his trademark, he had no idea he was walking into a trap. The same cross that fans around the world recognized, the one that children pointed to in photos, the symbol that had become synonymous with his authentic portrayal of Christ, was about to become the center of a confrontation that would change everything. The first sign something was wrong came from Lisa, a young production assistant who approached him near the makeup room. Her hands were shaking slightly as she delivered what she claimed was a small wardrobe note from the producers. But her nervous glances toward the cameras and the way she lowered her voice suggested this was anything but routine. What she said next would set in motion a chain of events that would expose the dark reality of how Hollywood really treats authentic faith behind closed doors. Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying content like this, please subscribe to our channel and let us know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, at 12:30 p.m., we'll be sharing another powerful story about an encounter that changed someone's life forever. Mr. Roumie, could you tuck the necklace under your shirt? It's just a visual thing. The lights create glare issues with jewelry. The production assistant's forced smile couldn't hide the rehearsed nature of her request. Jonathan recognized the lie immediately. Joy Behar's chandelier earrings caught studio lights every single day without complaint. Whoopi's collection of statement necklaces had never been a technical problem. Yet somehow, his simple silver cross was suddenly causing lighting issues. "This cross has been through plenty of professional shoots," Jonathan replied calmly, his fingers instinctively touching the pendant. "I think we'll be fine." The assistant's face flushed. She glanced toward the control room where producers were watching, waiting to see if their first attempt at erasing his faith would succeed. Actually, it's about keeping the interview focused on acting, rather than religious discussions. The View has viewers from all backgrounds. We want everyone to feel included. There it was, the real agenda wrapped in corporate speak. They wanted Jonathan Roumie the actor, not Jonathan Roumie the believer. They wanted his talent sanitized, his faith hidden, his authentic self tucked away like an embarrassing secret. Hiding who I am isn't inclusion, Jonathan said firmly. It's erasure. This cross doesn't exclude anyone. It represents who I am and why I do what I do. Her phone buzzed urgently. A text from the control room, probably demanding an update on the necklace situation. The panic in her eyes revealed the truth. No wasn't an acceptable answer to bring back to her bosses. Mr. Roumie, I really need you to work with us. The producers are very specific about maintaining neutrality. It's network policy. Network policy. The invisible rules that somehow only applied to Christian symbols. Other jewelry was fine. Other expressions of identity were celebrated. But faith, that required careful management and strategic concealment. Jonathan's hand found the cross again, remembering why he wore it. Not as an accessory or marketing tool, but as a reminder of the truth that transformed his life. The same authentic truth that millions of chosen viewers connected with because it was real, uncompromising, and powerful. The assistant waited, her phone buzzing again with another urgent message. Around them, the studio hummed with pre-show energy. But in this hallway, a much larger battle was beginning. One that would determine whether authentic faith had any place left in mainstream media, or whether it would be quietly erased, tucked away, and forgotten. Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying content like this, please subscribe to our channel and let us know where you're watching from. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we'll be sharing another powerful story about an encounter that changed someone's life forever. What happened next wasn't supposed to be recorded, but a hot microphone in the adjacent makeup room captured everything, and what you're about to hear would later be leaked by a disgusted crew member who couldn't stay silent. The assistant's phone rang. She stepped away, whispering urgently into the device before returning with a grim expression. Ms. Goldberg wants to speak with you privately, just for a moment. Jonathan followed her down a narrow hallway to a small conference room where Whoopi Goldberg sat alone. No cameras, no audience, no co-hosts. Just raw, unfiltered confrontation. Her famous smile was nowhere to be found. "Jonathan, let's cut the BS," Whoopi said before he even sat down. "I know what you're doing. This whole Jesus act, the cross, the social media posts about prayer and miracles. It's brilliant marketing, I'll give you that. But this is my show, and I'm not giving you a platform to preach." Jonathan remained silent, studying the woman who had built a career on being outspoken about everything except authentic faith. Her hostility wasn't hidden behind producer requests or network policies now. This was personal. "You think playing Jesus makes you special?" Whoopi continued, leaning forward. "I've been in this business for decades. I've seen every kind of performance. Your little Christian act might fool middle America, but it doesn't fool me." "It's not an act," Jonathan said quietly. Whoopi laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Everything's an act, honey. The difference is some of us are honest about it. You want to come on my show? Fine. But that cross goes, the God talk stops, and you stick to promoting your little TV show. Otherwise, we can end this interview before it starts." The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sounds of the studio preparing for broadcast. Jonathan looked at this woman who commanded such influence, who could make or break careers with a single segment, who was demanding he deny the very thing that had given his life meaning. "Ms. Goldberg," Jonathan said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel, That cross isn't a prop. My faith isn't a marketing strategy. And Jesus isn't a character I turn on and off for television." Whoopi's eyes hardened. "Then maybe you're not ready for real television. Maybe you should stick to your little Christian bubble where everyone thinks like you." What she said next would be the line that crossed everything. The words that would be replayed millions of times across social media, that would spark outrage from believers and non-believers alike, that would reveal the ugly truth about how Hollywood really views authentic faith. "Listen, Jesus boy," Whoopi hissed. "I don't care what you believe in your fantasy world, but on my show, I'm God, and God says lose the cross or lose the interview." The silence that followed was deafening. Even through the leaked audio, you could feel the weight of what had just been said. A woman who had spent years mocking faith, dismissing believers, and ridiculing Christian values had just revealed the depth of her hostility toward the man who had brought Jesus to life for millions. Jonathan stood slowly, his hand moving to the cross at his neck. When he spoke, his words were measured, powerful, and would echo far beyond that small conference room. "Ms. Goldberg, I've spent years portraying a man who was also told to deny who he was, to hide his message, to make his truth more palatable for the authorities. He refused then, and I refuse now." The confrontation was far from over. But in that moment, everyone in the room knew that something irreversible had just happened. The battle lines were drawn, and neither side was backing down. Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying content like this, please subscribe to our channel and let us know where you're watching from. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we'll be sharing another powerful story about an encounter that changed someone's life forever. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jonathan Roumie. The applause was warm, but Whoopi's smile looked painted on. The cross caught the studio lights immediately, a silver beacon mocking everything she had demanded minutes earlier. "So Jonathan," Whoopi began with false sweetness, "tell us about playing the most famous character in history. Must be quite the acting challenge." "It's been transformative, not just as an actor, but as a person," Jonathan replied. Joy Behar laughed. "Method acting to the extreme, right? Do you practice walking on water at home?" The panel chuckled, but Jonathan remained serious. "Faith isn't something you turn on and off for cameras." Whoopi's smile vanished. "But it is performance, isn't it? Let's be honest. You're an actor playing a role. How much of this Jesus thing is just committed marketing?" The studio fell silent. This was the trap she had set backstage. "My relationship with Christ isn't marketing," Jonathan said steadily. "It's why I can portray him authentically. It's why millions connect with the show." "Oh, please!" Whoopi dropped all pretense. "You're telling me you actually think you're channeling something divine? That you have some special connection to the man upstairs?" Jonathan looked directly into her eyes. "I'm telling you that faith transformed my life. And yes, I believe God works through me when I portray His Son. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe the problem isn't with my faith." Whoopi's voice rose, sharp and cutting. "I'm not uncomfortable with faith, honey. I'm uncomfortable with delusion, with actors who think they're prophets." "The only manipulation I see," Jonathan replied calmly, "is trying to force someone to hide their beliefs to be acceptable on your show." The audience gasped. Whoopi's face flushed red. "Listen, Jesus boy," she snapped. "I've been doing this show for years. I don't need some actor lecturing me about faith on my own set." Jonathan stood slowly. The studio fell silent. "And I don't need someone who mocks everything I believe to validate my faith. If wearing this cross makes me unwelcome here, then I don't belong here." He reached for his microphone. That's when Whoopi made the fatal mistake. "Fine! Take your little cross and your fairy tales and get off my stage." The words echoed like a gunshot. The audience erupted. Jonathan unclipped his microphone, placed it on the table, and delivered the knockout punch. "Thank you for showing America what tolerance really looks like. Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying content like this, please subscribe to our channel and let us know where you're watching from. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we'll be sharing another powerful story about an encounter that changed someone's life forever. As Jonathan walked toward the exit, Whoopi wasn't finished. The cameras were still rolling, and her rage had completely taken over. "That's right! Run back to your echo chamber," she shouted after him. "Run back where everyone tells you how special you are for playing dress-up." Jonathan stopped at the edge of the stage. He turned back slowly, and what happened next would become the most shared moment in daytime television history. "Ms. Goldberg," he said, his voice carrying across the silent studio, "I'm not running from anything. I'm walking toward truth. The same truth that's making you so angry right now." The audience was on the edge of their seats. Some were recording on their phones despite studio policies. They knew they were witnessing something unprecedented. Whoopi stood up from her chair, pointing at him. "Don't you dare lecture me about truth. I've been fighting for real issues while you've been playing make-believe." Playing make-believe? Jonathan's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. Tell that to the millions of people who found hope through this show. Tell that to the families who've been healed, the addicts who found recovery, the broken hearts that have been mended. "Fairy tales!" Whoopi screamed. "All of it! Fairy tales for weak people who can't handle reality." The studio gasped. Even Joy Behar looked uncomfortable. The other co-hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or distance themselves from the meltdown happening before their eyes. Jonathan touched his cross one final time. When he spoke, his words cut through the chaos like a sword. "You know what's weak, Ms. Goldberg. Demanding someone hide who they are because it threatens your worldview. You know what's reality? The fact that you just proved exactly why faith matters. Because even in the face of hatred, it teaches us to respond with love." He paused, looking directly into the cameras that were broadcasting this moment to millions. "I came here to share the story of hope that's changed countless lives. Instead, I've been told my faith is offensive, my beliefs are marketing, and my cross is a prop. If that's tolerance, then tolerance has lost all meaning." Whoopi was shaking with rage. "Get out! Just get out!" Jonathan smiled sadly. "I'm not the one who needs to leave, Ms. Goldberg. You've already left. You've left decency, respect, and everything this show once claimed to represent." With that, he walked off the stage. No dramatic gestures, no angry outbursts, just a man of faith who had drawn a line and refused to cross it. Behind him, chaos erupted. The audience was on their feet, some applauding, others arguing among themselves. Whoopi collapsed back into her chair, the weight of her public meltdown finally hitting her. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the aftermath. What had started as a routine celebrity interview had become a defining moment in the culture war between authentic faith and Hollywood secularism. And Jonathan Roumie had just won the battle without throwing a single punch. Before we continue this story, if you're enjoying content like this, please subscribe to our channel and let us know where you're watching from. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we'll be sharing another powerful story about an encounter that changed someone's life forever. The moment Jonathan disappeared backstage, the view fell into chaos. Whoopi sat frozen, the magnitude of her public meltdown finally sinking in. Joy Behar awkwardly tried to cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. "We'll be right back," she stammered, but the cameras kept rolling for precious seconds longer, capturing Whoopi's shell-shocked expression and the audience's stunned reactions. Backstage, phones were exploding. Producers screamed into headsets. Executives called emergency meetings. But it was too late. The clip was already being uploaded by audience members who had secretly recorded the entire confrontation. Within 15 minutes, Whoopi attacks faith, was trending worldwide. The hashtag #fairy tales Whoopi exploded across every platform. Her venomous words, "Take your little cross and your fairy tales," became the rallying cry that united believers and non-believers alike in outrage. The first viral clip showed just the walk-off. Then came the extended versions. Then, the leaked audio from their private meeting surfaced. Whoopi's "I'm God" declaration sending shockwaves through social media. Celebrity responses poured in immediately. Chris Pratt tweeted, "Faith isn't fairy tales. It's the foundation of hope." Denzel Washington posted simply, "Respect." Even secular Hollywood figures distanced themselves from Whoopi's attack. But the most powerful response came from The Chosen fans, millions of them. They flooded social media with their own stories of faith, recovery, and transformation. The hashtag #MyFaithIsReal became a movement within hours. ABC's phones rang nonstop. Advertisers demanded explanations. Christian groups called for boycotts. The network that had tried to silence one man's faith was now facing the wrath of millions who refused to be silenced. Emergency meetings erupted across the Disney empire. How had a simple interview turned into a public relations nuclear bomb? How had Whoopi's attempt to embarrass one actor backfired so spectacularly? The answer was simple. They had underestimated the power of authentic faith and the millions of people hungry to see it defended. By evening, The View was hemorrhaging viewers and sponsors. Whoopi's social media accounts were flooded with responses. The woman who had tried to mock faith as fairy tales was learning that millions of people considered those fairy tales worth fighting for. Meanwhile, Jonathan Roumie said nothing. No social media posts, no interviews, no victory laps. His silence spoke louder than any statement. He had made his point on that stage, and America had heard every word. The revolution had begun, and it started with one man refusing to hide his cross. Within 48 hours, Whoopi Goldberg's career was in free fall. Sponsors pulled out of The View faster than dominoes falling. ABC executives held crisis meetings around the clock. The woman who had mocked faith as fairy tales was learning that attacking 200 million American Christians had consequences. Target pulled their advertising. Walmart followed. Progressive Insurance, ironically, dropped their sponsorship after Whoopi's intolerant rant. The View's ratings plummeted 40% overnight as viewers abandoned the show in droves. But the real earthquake was cultural. Churches across America began displaying "Faith isn't fairy tales" banners. The phrase became a rallying cry for believers who were tired of being silenced, mocked, and marginalized by Hollywood elites. Jonathan Roumie's silence remained golden. While the media storm raged, he posted one simple image: his cross lying on an open Bible, with the caption, "Some things don't need defending. They defend themselves." That post was shared 50 million times. The backlash forced ABC into damage control. Rumors swirled that Whoopi would be suspended or even fired. Other talk show hosts began walking back years of anti-faith rhetoric, terrified of facing similar boycotts. Most powerful of all were the testimonies flooding social media. Parents shared how The Chosen had brought their families closer to God. Former addicts credited the show with saving their lives. Cancer patients described finding strength through Jonathan's portrayal of Jesus. These weren't fairy tales. They were real transformations, real healing, real hope. 3 weeks later, Whoopi finally broke her silence with a forced apology that fooled no one. "I respect all faiths," she read from a teleprompter, her eyes betraying the truth. She was sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she said. It was too late. The damage was permanent. The View never recovered its ratings. Whoopi's reputation as a tolerant liberal was shattered forever. Meanwhile, The Chosen's viewership exploded. Season 4 became the most-watched streaming series in history. Jonathan Roumie became more than an actor. He became a symbol of standing firm in faith when the world demands you compromise. The lesson was clear. Authentic faith couldn't be silenced, hidden, or mocked into submission. When millions of believers united, even Hollywood's most powerful voices were forced to listen. Jonathan had walked off that stage defending his cross. But in the end, he had defended something much bigger: the right of every believer to live their faith publicly, proudly, and without apology. Whoopi tried to make him choose between his faith and his career. Instead, he showed America that when you stand with God, you never stand alone. And sometimes, the most powerful sermons aren't preached from pulpits. They're delivered by simply refusing to remove your cross when the world demands it. Faith had won, and it wasn't even close.